Hi, welcome to the third installment of Hard Hats, Shovels, and Lunch Pails, where we talk about what's going on in the world of real assets and how they can have an impact on portfolios. My name is Sean McCann. I am an investment analyst on the team at Schneider Downs. Today, I am joined by Megan Muller, who is an advisor in our Pittsburgh office group. Megan, welcome.
Thanks for having me here.
We are actually shooting this episode the week after Thanksgiving. So what I thought we could do is talk about some of our opportunities to tour real assets throughout the year and basically kind of give an example of how that food that we have on our Thanksgiving table goes from farm to table. But first, big important question, what is your favorite Thanksgiving food item?
I am there for the stuffing and the cranberry sauce.
I really do like stuffing, but I gotta go with sweet potatoes, especially with my in-laws. They have had a habit of putting way too much butter and sugar in the sweet potatoes, which I love because I can basically disguise a dessert in the main course. So, but no nuts, no hazelnuts, walnuts, anything like that on the table for Thanksgiving?
We did not have any hazelnuts on our Thanksgiving table this year, but I did get a wonderful opportunity to tour a hazelnut tree farm that is an investment in our versus allocation. The tour itself was really awesome. So just a fun fact, Turkey is actually the #1 producer of hazelnuts on a global basis. They're producing about 70% of that global production. Previous to, more recent years, a lot of the hazelnuts that were produced were sent to China to be used in production for other foods and manufactured products. So a lot of times that hazelnut that's being grown on the farm that I got to take a look at in a tour of wasn't necessarily making its way from the producer straight to your table. So something that is different these days is that hazelnut farmers are putting a lot more effort into building up the quality of those hazelnuts so that they are more attractive for direct consumption. So things like chocolate-covered hazelnuts instead of your typical chocolate-covered almond. They think that timing is everything. So really their process starts in the spring. After we come out of the dormant season of winter, they begin fertilizing in early spring. In August, the hazelnut trees start to dry out, and those hazelnuts internally will start to dry and then eventually fall, which leads into the September through October season, which is their 5-week-long harvesting season. Do a lot of different things. They've worked on some different things over the past few years, including drip irrigation systems and some other things to really bolster their production. Once the October season hits, they really start to hit the ground running and just begin to really collect those hazelnuts, package them up, and then ship them out in different shipping containers.
So you're talking a little bit about basically the farm aspect when we say farm to table. And I assume at some point between farm to table, right, they got to be stored somewhere. A lot of times these food items are transported many, many miles from the actual farm or the hazelnut farm in this case to my table, your table, everybody's table here in Pittsburgh and around the country. And actually an asset that I was able to tour in the spring was the Martin Brower cold storage food facility, which is based out of Chicago. Really interesting thing I thought that I learned there on that tour was that food distribution facility actually serves every single McDonald's in the Chicago area, which is a mission critical operation in my mind. And they serve every McDonald's about 2 to 3 days, and then they actually serve all of the Chick-fil-A's as well every single night, which I'm a big fan of Chick-fil-A personally, so I really am proud of the job that they're doing there in Chicago. But what I thought was really interesting about this food distribution facility is that it's a little bit different than your average facility, right? The average facility these days is about 40 years old. This specific asset in Chicago was actually built about 10 years ago in 2014. So a bit newer, a bit more modern, and it was really interesting because it was very clean, almost techie for a food distribution center. The food outlay, right? The groundwork is basically split up into 3 different sections. You've got dry food, which is basically food that is held at room temperature. That's about 50% of the square footage.
And that's where the hazelnuts would be stored because they are more of a shelf-stable protein, so they don't necessarily require any of that refrigeration.
Right, so that's about 50% of the space. And then you've got cooler, right? So think of temperatures just above freezing. I think it's 34 degrees and up. That's about 30% of the space. And then you've got freezer rooms, which get extremely cold, and that's about the remaining 20% of the space. And from personal experience, I can tell you that is a very cold room. It gets to negative 10 degrees in some rooms. And I was grossly underdressed for that tour. I was wearing a dress shirt, not wearing a jacket. And I can tell you guys that food is safe in those freezers. So much so it gets so cold that the actual floors there need to be treated with this alcohol compound called glycol, which basically keeps the floors from cracking because we've got forklifts and everything going around in those rooms. They need to be treated, otherwise the actual cement floors will crack, which I thought was really interesting. But with Thanksgiving behind us, right, the next big holiday coming around the corner here in just a couple weeks is Christmas. In your household, do you have a Christmas tree up there in your household?
I currently have mine up as of
already,
December
okay.
1st.
Are you a real Christmas tree or a fake Christmas tree person?
So I love to have a real Christmas tree, though being on my own over the last few years, I have gone the easier route and done a pre-lit Christmas tree, but I hope to get back to the real deal.
Yeah, I've always been a fake Christmas tree person, and I think I've always had pets, and they love to chew the trees. But you actually had the opportunity to go to a Christmas tree farm earlier this year. Where was that at?
Yeah, so I was able to visit the Noble Mountain Christmas Tree Farm out of Portland, Oregon. Oddly enough, and I found this really interesting, Oregon is the #1 producer and seller of Christmas trees in the United States. And something I was not aware of prior to going on this tour was that the #2 producer is actually all the way on the opposite side of the coast of the United States in North Carolina. So you have two powerhouse states on each side of the country that are really supplying a lot of the country with our Christmas trees that, we come to see and love around the holiday time. That holiday, feeling brings a lot of nostalgia for people, and I think that that's something that is translated almost in the Christmas tree production process. That process really has not been able to be made, extremely efficient just because of the territory and the terrain that these trees have to be grown in. So, though technology has come a long way, this is still a really tedious and manual process. The trees themselves, where they're grown, they grow about a foot per year. So typically your 6 to 7 foot or 7 to 8 foot trees are those trees that are sort of most sought after. So when you think about that in terms of one foot of growth per year, these trees that we have in our house for a month, maybe a month and a half if we're lucky, are really being put into motion 8 years prior sometimes. And so I thought that was, just a good opportunity to step back and say, to enjoy the beauty of the holiday that we are getting to experience, but realize that a lot of time, energy, and effort goes into all of those things that we get to love and experience. So happy holidays from us here at Schneider Downs Wealth Management.
Happy holidays, everybody, and have a happy new year.